Welcome to Face Palm Sunday, the segment on the internet where we respond to stupidity. And we respond to it together. All of you viewers who write comments down below refuting this bitch for who she really is. Anita Sarkeesian made a new video, and we're going to respond to it today. I think personally this is one of her worst videos that she's done, which serves absolutely no purpose and does nothing but... Oh my god, you're just gonna have to see what she has. Just watch it, okay?
In Bungie's hugely successful online shooter Destiny, players start by creating their own character, a guardian who will fight to protect the last remnants of humanity. As with character creation tools in other games, this one lets you choose from different genders and races. In most ways, Destiny treats its playable female characters almost identically to how it treats its male characters. For instance, the armor you acquire when playing as a female character isn't sexualized, but looks just as practical and stylish as the gear equipped by male characters. However, there is one way in which the male and female characters are differentiated by gender, and it has to do with their movement. Watch how a male guardian sits down, taking a load off after a long, hard day fighting the forces of pure evil. It's simple, it suggests confidence. When a female character sits down, however, it's a completely different story. She sits like a delicate flower. This is supposed to be a hardened space warrior, and yet she's sitting around like she's Ariel from The Little Mermaid.
Really, Anita Sarkeesian? This is your criticism of Destiny? The way the two characters sit? Well, if the female character in Destiny sits with a lean to her right on her arm or lean to her left on her arm, then by all means I must be a woman. And I know that I'm not, because that is obviously a gender identifier. You automatically know she's a real girl. She's a woman by the way that she sits and she leans with her arm. I'm guilty of sitting the exact same way that female Destiny character model has sat. So what does that say about me? Am I somehow feminine because I sit with a lean on my arm? I bet you anything that if they had the same character sitting the way that the men sits with his legs spread open and his legs wide open, you would criticize them in the same way because you would say that her pussy is being centered and focused on. Although she has pants, her spreading her legs out and sitting with her legs spread would be some sort of emphasis of wanting to get fucked, or that they're trying to draw focus to her, inner calves or her vagina. So what do the developers do? They don't want to, pop out her pussy through those pants, so they put her in a normal, natural sitting pose of her leaning, and that's still not good enough. I would love to see how you would form a woman sitting in Destiny, because it seems at this point there's no winning with you under any context, in any situation.
Catwoman from the Arkham series has a deeply exaggerated hip sway when she walks. In combination with her clothing and the game's camera angles, all of this is meant to drive the player's focus to her highly sexualized butt. In Resident Evil Revelations, Jill Valentine somehow manages to wiggle her whole body while she runs. In Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Evie Frye is a character who avoids falling into many of the sexualizing traps that some playable female characters do, but she still walks with an exaggerated hip sway.
Oh, an exaggerated hip sway. Okay, first of all, Anita, are you familiar with what sexual dimorphism is? Because it's a really simple concept. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but just look up sexual dimorphism and understand what that is, and then you will understand why women naturally almost always have more of a sway than a man when they walk. But again, to quote you, you say exaggerated hip sway. From that last part, and even in Resident Evil, they didn't really look exaggerated to me. When I think of exaggerated, I think of something like this. Now, I'm going to show you a normal demonstration of a sway, because, women are naturally bigger in the hips, are naturally larger in that area of the body, usually. Women are known for childbearing, and many other, genetic and biological factors that we're not going to get into. Again, sexual dimorphism. But just for example, a woman... Go. A woman would be something to the liking of, here's a normal walk. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then we have a normal, kind of a hip sway, kind of like this, kind of like a little normal hip sway, just very, very mild. When I think of an exaggerated hip sway, I think of something more like, like that's exaggerated. Like this is exaggerated. See this? That's exaggerated. Walking with like this, kind of like, that's not exaggerated. That's a natural thing. That's perfectly normal for how many women walk. And yet here you are using this as a criticism on how games sexualize women by their hips. For a third time, sexual dimorphism.
In fact, animating so many female characters in games to fit into this very gendered, sexualizing walk pattern is an example of one of the ways the male gaze manifests in video games. The term male gaze was coined in 1975 by feminist film critic Laura Mulvey and refers to the tendency for the visual arts to assume and be structured around a presumed masculine viewer, or in this case, player. The male gaze manifests when the camera takes on a perspective of a stereotypical heterosexual man. An indisputable example of this is when the camera lingers, caresses, or pans across a woman's body. The male gaze reinforces the notion that man looks and the woman is looked at. Or as art critic John Berger explains in the 1972 book Ways of Seeing, men act and women appear. Men look at women. Women watch themselves being looked at. This determines not only most relations between men and women, but also the relation of women to themselves. To be clear, the male gaze is not a hard and fast rule. It's a theoretical concept that is meant to help us understand the sometimes subtle and nuanced ways in which our culture influences media, and the way that media in turn can shape and reinforce existing gender dynamics in our culture. The male gaze is also not in any way limited to men or heterosexual people. Almost all of us internalize and sometimes identify with the male gaze to some extent. Eradicating the male gaze is not as simple as introducing an inverse female gaze that sexualizes men either. Not just because equal opportunity sexual objectification isn't the answer, but also because it isn't actually equal. One reinforces pre-existing oppressive ideas about women that are real and damaging to women in their everyday lives.
Wow, did you just catch what she said? So, what she said here, to summarize it in less feminist jargon, is that the reason that the male gaze towards women is harmful and damaging to women is because women are oppressed, and, well, of course she didn't say it, but the patriarchy. But somehow, it's okay, and it's not wrong for a woman to use the exact sort of male gaze, let's just call it the female gaze, towards, did I say gaze? Gaze with a Z-E, towards men. Because, you know, women are the oppressed people, so therefore the oppressed people get to have leniency towards the same standard that men are upheld to, that the male gaze, looking at a woman in any sort of gaze or fashion or sexually in any way or sexual objectification is wrong because men are the oppressors. Therefore, it's not okay for them to do this, but it's okay for women to do this because they're not oppressed. You've knowingly admitted and shown your double standard here, Anita Sarkeesian, that the female gaze doesn't matter, they're not held to the same standard because men are the oppressors because patriarchy. But I'm glad that you finally have the guts to admit this double standard and show it in clear force like you've done in this video.
When male characters are depicted as shirtless or wearing little clothing, like the character sometimes dubbed Hot Ryu from Street Fighter V, their lack of clothing demonstrates their power and strength, rather than depicting them as erotic playthings or reducing them to sexualized body parts.
How in the hell would you know this? How in the hell would you know that a woman, let's just say a girl, let's say a 22-year-old girl who loves dick. She loves men. She loves big, buff men with ripped abs, with ripped everything. When she sees that Street Fighter character or sees that guy or girl, this could be a lesbian too, really liking, sexualized women in video games. When she sees that big, buff man, how do you know that she doesn't see him in a sexual, in a sense, that she doesn't see it as an erotic thing? Sure, a man with his shirt off can be a signal of strength, but it can also be a signal of desire that a woman may want, or an attractive thing, a trait, a characteristic, a sexual body type that woman may want. You can't tell women what is and isn't exotic for them, what they do and don't find attractive with men, much less women. I would be curious to know your response for women, lesbians who play video games, who love to see, that female ass pop out. Would you hold them to the same standard that you do with men and how men play video games and see the same thing on a woman, but they're the bad guys, but a woman doing the exact same thing who is into women is not held to the same standard?
These are questions you need to be asking yourself as a viewer watching her content. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Daniel Soulsbach, also known as Mr. Repzion. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Her video is linked down below in full. I did edit a few clips out, but for the gist of it, I included almost everything. So, thank you for watching.